I'm Marni Hughes, and this is Missing. Thank you for joining us. Each week, we cover a missing person case that isn't getting much attention. Every missing person matters, no matter their race, their background, or their circumstances. And by highlighting these cases and sharing their stories, we believe every case is solvable, and together we can bring answers to the family and friends of the missing. This week's featured case is a mystery stretching more than 4 decades, more than 40 years since Allison Diker has wondered what happened to her mom.
I maybe was 3, 4 at the most. I remember she was curling her hair. She had this long, beautiful blonde hair. And I was just kind of sitting, and I just remember being in awe of how beautiful she was.
Lenine Rogers vanished in 1981. She was 29 years old at the time, living with her husband, Bud, in Erie, Pennsylvania, when she disappeared. Coming up, red flags in that relationship and Allison's push now all these years later to unlock evidence in this case that has been kept sealed for so long. First, we have several other missing cases that we want to update you on. The search for Sebastian Rogers continues in Tennessee and beyond. The 15-year-old from Tennessee has been missing now for 18 months. The FBI once again asking for information about Sebastian's case. The agency is offering a $50,000 reward for any information and tips that can lead to Sebastian. Contact the Sumner County Sheriff's Office or the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation if you have a tip, big or small. Sebastian is on the autism spectrum. His mom says when she woke up on that morning of February 26, 2024, Sebastian was gone. This week marks 25 years since the disappearance of Zachary Bernhardt. Zachary vanished from his home in Clearwater, Florida. He was 8 years old. His mother said that the apartment was unlocked and Zachary had been sleeping in her bed when she left for a walk and a swim. She worked late nights, odd hours, and that was not unusual for her. When she returned, Zachary was gone. There is renewed hope in a cold case dating back to 1986. Christopher Abieta's family says new evidence has come to light all of these years later. A new age progression photo shows what Christopher might look like today at the age of 39. The family says he was taken from his crib at his family's home in Colorado Springs. He was 7 months old at the time. Both of his parents have sadly passed away, but his sister is pushing for answers. She says Christopher's father had told police about a person they believe was stalking the family at the time of his kidnapping. The sister claims police never interviewed that person. If you have any information that can help bring answers to this family and find out what happened to Christopher, you can contact the Colorado Springs Police Department. That number is on your screen. Now to this week's featured case, the disappearance of a young deaf mother from Western Pennsylvania, unsolved now for 4 decades. Lenine Rogers vanished in the middle of the night in 1981. Her daughter, only 5 years old at the time, has fought to get attention on this case. She's also fighting for a new law that would change things for missing families everywhere. Because there is hope someone in the deaf community knows something. We've enlisted the help of a sign language interpreter to spread Lenine's story. Besides a few seconds of 8mm film, Allison Diker has only one real memory of her mother, 29-year-old Lenine Rogers.
I maybe was 3, 4 at the most. I remember she was curling her hair. She had this long, beautiful blonde hair. And I was just kind of sitting, and I just remember being in awe of how beautiful she was.
She was born deaf, but you know, it didn't stop her at all. She was real bubbly, a lot of fun, always in a good mood, always.
In 1972, Lonnie, as she was known to her family, married Clinton Bud Rogers, who was also deaf. They lived on the 2nd floor of this house outside Erie, Pennsylvania. Old photos show what looks like a happy couple. The family was even featured in a local news article about devices for the hearing impaired. But Lonnie's family says by the fall of 1980, the relationship had soured. Then a bombshell.
They found out that he had a record and that he had been in jail.
This is the criminal record report from my father. things from breaking and entering, stealing cars, staging a robbery in his place of work.
Lonnie kicked Bud out, but in December, she agreed to let him stay for the holidays.
She allowed him to come back to the apartment and sleep on the couch so that he could be there Christmas morning with the kids. But then after the holidays, he refused to leave.
According to her family, Lonnie was fed up and planned to leave with the kids. But on the morning of January 7th, 1981, everything changed.
It's 3 o'clock in the morning. My father wakes me up and says, "Your mother left for another man. I need you to get up, help me get your brother. And I'm taking you to the babysitter so I can go find her."
We knew it was a lie. She would never do that. She would never leave her kids. And she would never leave her home without her hearing aid or a coat or a wallet. I mean, that's not Lonnie Ray.
Lonnie's father, a volunteer firefighter, organized a search party.
They searched the woods, they searched with dogs, they searched with helicopters, they searched the creek, but did not come up with anything.
Over the years, flyers, newspaper articles, billboards, Allison even wrote a book about the case. The only solid lead came just a few years ago when Allison heard a third-hand story about her father making mysterious trips to a wooded area.
He kept stopping at this one location, and he would make the girlfriend stay in the car, and he would go into the woods and then come back.
And he allegedly had a chilling warning for the girlfriend.
One day, she said to him, she must have gotten the guts somehow, to say, "Is Lonnie in there? Why do you keep going in there?" And he said, "You keep your mouth shut or I'll put you in there with her."
Allison turned to Facebook, sharing the story with thousands of followers, saying police knew about the tip in 2006, but nothing was ever done. That's when a stranger offered to bring cadaver dogs.
The dogs came. We repeated it 3 times. And they alerted to the same exact spot every time. The owners of the property allowed us to come in and do whatever we needed to do. We cut that tree down. And so the tree was kind of like toppled over and the roots were exposed, and they alerted to the stump of the tree.
Allison believes her mother's body was there and possibly moved.
Part of her would still be there and in the root system of that tree. So when the tree was taken down and the roots exposed, that is exactly where the dogs indicated.
Without a body, the case has gone cold. Allison says it's time for the state police to let her see any information they have, but they refuse, saying it's still an open investigation.
What if I could connect A and B and that would get them to C? But they'll never know and I'll never know because they won't share it with me.
She's pushing for a law named after her mother, which would allow families access to cold case files after 20 years.
Lonnie's law would change things, not only for my family, but for the thousands, hundreds of thousands of families that are dealing with the same thing.
Meanwhile, a new private investigator is breathing new energy into the case.
My experience has been that bad people like to get things off their chest.
Jeff Walters began working the case in 2024. He and Allison have been reaching out to the tight-knit deaf community around Erie, Pennsylvania, and they hope our story will reach someone who has information.
I think by going to them with a video with the sign language interpreter explaining that, maybe that would be enough to encourage that person or persons to come forward.
And Walters has this message directly to anyone involved.
I believe whoever's responsible, it's been weighing on them. The devil is coming. The devil's been poking them at the back. It's been talking to them. And you know what? It's never too late to make things right with your maker. And I think time is running out, though.
But there is always hope. Joining us now, Lonnie's daughter, Allison. And in a moment, we'll be talking to an attorney about Allison's push to get Lonnie's law passed. Allison, thank you so much for being a voice for your mom and for so many others, especially in cold cases, that we don't turn the page and that we continue to investigate them actively. So thank you. I know in your heart, you have shared with our producers and you've been vocal that you believe your father is responsible for your mom's death. Have you spoken to him?
I have not. When I was 14 years old, he left me at a police station and said he was done being a parent. And I have not spoken to him since then. So directly, I had not. I had a lot of like emotional fear, and he has a lot of angst against me. So I wasn't sure that it would ever be a productive conversation.
Has he been interviewed by police, and where is he now?
So I continue to press and beg the police to talk to him. The police tell me that they have a lot of cases they're working, they're very busy, and I just get excuse after excuse after excuse. He's currently in jail. He has been in jail since April for violating a PFA against his former girlfriend. And he's due to be released sometime in October, and they still have not interviewed him.
Where does the case stand now? I know having a private investigator has helped push it forward. Are you hopeful that new leads, reaching out to the deaf community, will give you the final clues and answers that you need?
I am. I do believe that time, they say time heals wounds. I think that fear that people who hold answers may be able to subside a little bit. And I pray that after so many years, people who hold the answers are willing to come forward and share information. And that includes my father.
Take us to that wooded area and what it was like for you to be out there when the dogs pick up on a scent, on possible clues.
Oh my gosh. So I was present when the dogs were searching, and, I was watching them. Well, I say them, they ran them one at a time. And it was two different dogs, and they would like circle around the area, circle, and then end up at one specific tree and then sit. And the handler said that was alerting to that particular spot. And my heart just sank. And then, you think, well, it's just a fluke. And they ran a different dog from a different direction. And that dog did the same exact thing. Circle, stop at the same exact tree. I couldn't believe it.
And to be there in that moment, what did you feel?
It was so crazy because, my mission is to find answers, but I hadn't really stopped to think about what if I do? And, my gut, like my stomach just turned thinking, could this be it? And that gut moment, where your body flushes thinking, oh my gosh, is this that moment? And it just never went any further than that.
What is your own theory, Allison? You know this case better than anyone.
My theory is that, so the night that she disappeared, he woke up my brother and myself up at 3 a.m. and said that she had left with another man. He took us to a babysitter who was also hearing impaired at 3 a.m. and didn't go to work until 6. So 6 a.m. he showed up at work. There were 3 hours there, and it would only take him 20 minutes to get to work. He drove a 4-wheel drive truck. My theory is that he hid her somewhere, and it may be that spot in the woods, but that he hid her somewhere, that, it's a dense area. The woods are very dense. I think he hid her, and he hid her so well that no one found her.
You were 5 years old at the time of your mom's disappearance. You mentioned that you were 14 when your dad dropped you off. Did he raise you from that initial time from 5 to 14? And who else were you in the care of?
So off and on, they would, from the time that my mother disappeared, I was 5, and I went to his sister's home to live for a while. And then he would take my brother and I back and say that, he was ready to be a parent, or my aunt was done taking care of us and said, you're going back to live with him. And then foster care would get involved. Neighbors, friends would take us in. And inevitably, we always were returned to him. That pattern continued until I was 14. And when he dropped me off at the police station, it happened to be my brother's birthday that day. So lucky or unlucky for him, he wasn't dropped off, I was. But that particular day, my guidance counselor earlier in the day knew that if I was with my father, things were not good, and she was checking in with me. And at that point, I just said, I'm fine. Like, why bother even saying that things aren't good? And she gave me her home phone number. And I thought, whatever. And I stuck it in my pocket. Well, then at the police station, the officer said, "Who can you call?" And after my aunt said, "No, they're not coming back here," I didn't have anyone else. I felt the number in my pocket and I said, "Oh, well, here, my teacher said to call if I needed anything. You can try her." And shockingly, my school guidance counselor said to the police officer, "I'm on my way." And that's who became my family and how I, was able to reach for healthy choices and opportunities and went to college, all the messages that I was not told. They said, "You will become something, you will become whatever you want to be." And I was able to kind of break the cycle and the pattern of abuse and move on.
Wow. What about your brother, Allison? How is he doing? Where did he end up?
So unfortunately, that's why I say lucky or unlucky for him. He was still with my father and endured a lot of abuse. Children's services kept coming in and taking him away, or he would run away and stay with a friend. And my father never cared, never followed up. So my father abused him, beat him up, and they ended up in court where they did a joint restraining order, and my brother got emancipated and just kind of lived on his own. He's, now has a family of his own and, dealing with a lot of that trauma from his past, I'm sure.
Wow. Having all this happen to you and not knowing what happened to your mom and not having your mom in your life, how has it shaped who you are, Allison, today?
Well, I'm proud to say this is my 26th year of teaching. I'm a special education teacher, and it is the most fitting end for me. I was destined to be a teacher because who I am today is because of all the teachers in my life who took, an interest in my life and helped me become who I am today. So I'm kind of paying it forward to my students, and I try to help them and love on them as much as possible.
Wow, what a blessing and what a gift you are. And not only passing that message along to your students, but trying to advocate for other families who have a missing loved one through Lonnie's Law. Tell me how that came about and what's the status of that quest?
So that came about from disappointment. I thought, what do I do with this? What if I actually never find her? What do I do? Do I just keep feeling that emotion and that disappointment? And I felt like my mother inspired me to say, use this, turn that pain into purpose and use this to help others. And then that is her legacy. Her missing is not her legacy. What going forward, helping others and helping others to rise above the situations they're in and choose their own destiny. I'm not a child of the system. I am a teacher, a mother, a wife. And I felt inspired by that thought. So with that, one of the things that became so alarmingly clear to me is how many families I've spoken at a few different conferences about Lonnie's Law, about my story, about my experiences. And I was shocked that there are hundreds of thousands, because you cover these stories of people telling the same story, please begging the police to please talk to us, please share information, please help us help you. And it just is a dead end. And it doesn't need to be that way. And from that feeling came Lonnie's Law and my quest to try to change legislation. 20 years is a lifetime. I even think 20 years is too long. But if I'm going to compromise, after 20 years, there's nothing new and fresh about this case. It's time for other answers. It's time for different angles and takes on the case. And that's what I'm hoping that I'm currently searching for a legislator to adopt this and take it to the floor. That's where I'm at right now with that.
Have you met any hurdles or challenges in doing so? How optimistic are you that you can bring it to fruition?
I'm very resilient, so I don't take no for an answer. So I am continuing to fight, and I will fight and do whatever I know to do. I have met with a lot of resistance. Unfortunately, the way our legal system is set up, our country is founded on checks and balances, but that's not true in law enforcement. There's no one to force them to follow up with families. I, about a month ago, got an email from the investigator saying, I'm no longer communicating with you about this investigation in hopes of pursuing legal matters. And, you're telling me that you're not going to talk to me anymore? Like, how is that just? And there's too much capitalism, too much freedom, too much lack of accountability when it comes to law enforcement, and that is what I'm butting into.
Wow.
Because I can't move forward without them. They want to work hand in hand, but they just won't.
Yeah. Well, we'll continue to follow it. Allison, stay in touch with us as you continue to try to push this and pursue it. And thank you again for being a voice. And you left out survivor when describing yourself, not a victim of the system. So thank you.
Very true.
All right, joining us now to talk more about Allison's efforts and families like hers to get something like Lonnie's Law passed and giving families access to information in cold cases is attorney John Fishwick. John, thank you for looking into this for us and helping us better understand the challenges Allison says she's facing legally when it comes to bringing something like this to light. What might be the hurdles that she's facing and why?
Good morning. I think it's a great concept, Lonnie's Law. After 20 years, that's a long time. In most cases, there are thousands of cases out there, cold cases, missing person cases, as you well know. In most of those cases, those files haven't been touched in years. So I think it's a great concept to have them revealed to the family, the victim's family, after 20 years. But there will be some resistance. What law enforcement will typically say is, look, we don't want anybody interfering with our investigations. You may contact a suspect or a witness, and every investigation is open in their opinion. Many times they'll say, look, we could get a phone call tomorrow on a cold case and we don't want you interfering with that. And they'll also say, law enforcement will say, hey, look, we've got manpower issues. We can only put so many people on so many cases, and we've got thousands of missing persons cases. So there's some hurdles. I think law enforcement will probably initially oppose it, but I think it's a great concept because ultimately you want to put people together, the victim's family and law enforcement, put their heads together, see if they can come up with a theory that works, open up another line of investigation and bring justice. There's bad folks out there. Let's find them. Let's put law enforcement and the families together. So I think it's a great concept. And listening to Allison, I think she's got a lot of grit. I think she could get something done.
Yeah, a lot of resistance. John Fishwick, thank you for jumping on with us to talk about this. I'll see you again soon. So appreciate your time.
Thanks so much.
All right, if you have information that can help in this investigation into Lonnie's disappearance, Lenine Rogers, contact the Pennsylvania State Police. The number is 814-332-6911. A dive team recently recovered more than 90 cars in the Chicago River in the ongoing search to solve a decades-old missing mystery. We've got video of the chaos divers in action, looking for a 1969 Oldsmobile that belonged to a couple that vanished in 1970. Edward and Stefania Andrews were from Arlington Heights, Illinois. It's a suburb of Chicago when they disappeared on their way home from a cocktail party. The couple never made it home, and neither did their yellow Oldsmobile. It's still missing. That's where the chaos divers come in. They work to help solve these cold cases. During their search of the Chicago River, though, they located far more than one car. The team found more than 90 vehicles in the water. Joining us now from Chaos Divers, Jacob Grubbs, the founder and owner, and Lindsay Busick, the organization's manager. I am amazed by the work that you guys do, even more so that you made this incredible find in the Chicago River. Did you have any idea when you went into the water what you guys would discover?
I knew that there would be vehicles here just with Chicago's history. Didn't anticipate, I think right before we left, we were at close to 140.
Yeah, 140 cars. And how do you explain that? I mean, what's the explanation how all these cars end up in the river?
There's a lot of insurance frauds. There's a lot of crime. Maybe somebody did something bad and then they wanted to dispose of the vehicle so they wouldn't get caught. There's just a lot of different variations, accidents, health issues to where it could be an accident. There's also self-harm to speak of, but yeah, it's crazy.
I'm guessing since you guys started your organization 5 or so years ago, this is the biggest find in one body of water that you've uncovered?
Yes.
In terms of the amount of cars?
Yes, it is. Like I said, I think this time we were right around 140. However, when we were just in Canada a couple of months ago, we found 138. So this is just barely toppling over that number, but then this is the most.
Astounding. Tell me about your mission, because although this is just amazing to hear that many cars were found, I mean, the mission is important, it's grim, it's linked to a lot of unknown mysteries. Why did you start to do this?
When I first started, I wanted to become a scuba diver, and I've always had the joy of fishing and being on the water, so I wanted to see what was under. And then I noticed there was a lot of trash and a lot of just stuff that didn't belong in the waters. So we decided to clean out the water systems and just go out and have fun dives and clean up and go treasure diving. Mm-hmm. And I was honored enough to be able to work with a team called Team Waters out of St. Louis. They're a sonar search and recovery specialist. They've been able to bring home 104 lost loved ones in the past, what did they do, 20 years? So a very good team. Dennis took me under his wing, and he was able to show me what I needed to do to get the job done and to help these families. He just passed away probably a year ago, almost 2 years now, right? And rest in peace, Dennis. Tammy is still with us, and she helps us out when we need it. But they've been awesome.
Incredible. And this has become a full-time job for both of you. Tell me about some of the finds that you all have made recovering missing loved ones for families who have, been in the dark for so long.
So we have now had the honor and the privilege of bringing 21 home from the waters. There have been some who were missing for as short as 6 days, all the way back to Karen Sheepers from this area. She'd been missing for 42 years.
And that was the Fox River
Correct.
Find. Tell me about her case.
We were aware of Karen's case. It was kind of on our radar. We just hadn't had a chance to make it up to this area yet. And that's when the Elgin Police Department formed their cold case unit and reached out to us asking for our assistance. We said, absolutely, let's get this done. We were able to locate her on that first day within just a few hours of entering the water. It was probably one of the more memorable cases because her mother, who had just turned 90 years old, was still alive. So to be able to give that to her, to say, here's your daughter, and here's some of the things that she held on to dearly, even just her tiny ring that she had, to be able to be there when her mom was able to get those things back was remarkable. It was humbling. It was probably one of the most beautiful experiences to be a part of.
It's why you do it every time, to bring those families closure. Tell me a little bit about the process, Jacob, how you guys are locating these cars, where you know to search.
Just the path we try to get from point A to point B, where there should have been, where they should have ended up, and trying to get a timeline, sort of like what the weather was like, and just the whole bunch of different variations of things. We then determine bodies of water in that route, on that route. From there, we'll put our boat in. Either it could be our RC sonar boat that has an Apex sonar, Hummingbird, just a regular sonar like it is on our big boat. If we have a small pond, we could put that in and use it, and she's able to get a live feed on it. And if not, we're able to put a big boat in. We'll put the big boat in, and we have 4 different sonars, and we sonar the waters to see if we can find any vehicles in it.
Wow, and you've got some cases coming up. Tell me about those.
We have about a week trip that we're going to take in Ohio. There's a young man who's been missing since March. And then after that, we'll be heading down to Mississippi and Louisiana for about 2 weeks. There's a young man who's been missing, I believe, since the 60s. There is definitely some belief that, there's some nefarious acts behind his disappearance. Another case that we're returning to that we have been working for the last few years, and then a case in Shreveport that we're going to head back to. We've worked it previously. That's something that Jacob and we've made a promise to anytime we work on a case, if we do not locate them, we will continue to come back until that person is found. And that's a promise that we've kept to every family, and we're just going to keep continuing to do that.
Wow, you guys travel the country near and far to help these families. How can folks who are watching get involved, help you guys to continue your efforts?
So the biggest and easiest way is to tune in to either YouTube or Facebook on Chaos Divers, watching those videos, sharing those videos. That helps the most. There's also chaosdivers.com. That gives you the link to all of our kind of merchandise. It gives you the link to all of our social media platforms, as well as different donation opportunities.
Wow, incredible work. I'm so excited to meet you guys. I wish I had met you 2 years ago when we started our missing series, but now I know you, and you know us. So I'm excited to work together with you on many of the cold cases, just like Lonene Rogers, who we were talking about with her daughter Allison today. Thanks, Jacob and Lindsay, so much. If you would like to learn more about the Chaos Divers and all of the incredible work they're doing, go to chaosdivers.com. And as they mentioned, they've got a YouTube channel. If you have a missing case you think we should investigate, go to our missing page on newsnationnow.com. Many of the cases we cover come from you, and you can also sign up for our weekly missing newsletter for the latest missing cases that we are working on. I'm Marni Hughes in Chicago. As always, thank you for joining us. I'll see you back here next week for another missing case.